Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Michigan State Capitol Commission to order. Obviously, our chair, Bill Candler, is not able to be here today, so I will be, as vice chair, I'll be chairing in his absence. And I would add that we do have excused absences for both Chair Candler and Commissioner Land. And I would ask our clerk to call the roll.
Chair Candler is excused. Vice Chair Bauer?
Here.
Commissioner Hobbs? Here. Commissioner Land is excused. Commissioner Oberlin?
Here.
And Commissioner Starr? Here. 4 members are present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And please note on your agenda that our next meeting date has been set. It will be October 6th, Monday, October 6th at 11 o'clock. So you have the minutes from our June meeting before you. Are there any additions or corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Hobbs, seconded by Commissioner Starr. All those in favor say aye of approving the minutes. Aye. Minutes are approved. And then that brings us to the real substance of today's meeting. We have a lot of updates to learn about today. So I would invite our Executive Director, Rob Blackshaw, to share those with us.
Thank you, Chair Bauer. I've not said that before. I just wanted to make sure I said that. Commissioners, thank you for having me today. I have a few updates on all the projects that are going on. I'd first like to extend a sorry to the House and the Senate. This is typically a time of the year where we just get real noisy. There's dust flying and there's hammers going, and they're usually on summer break. But since they're not, we're sorry. We're still moving forward with it. Appreciate your patience as we work through these projects. And again, please communicate with me at any time there's a disturbance, because we will pull off. So, as of yesterday, we started to work on the installation of the new governor's windows in the suite, as previously mentioned. This project is starting on the North Conference Room and will continue in a clockwise fashion until we end in the governor's parlor. And just to reiterate, we are replacing ballistic windows that have been in there for over 30 years. The gel between the windows is delaminated, so we decided to replace them all. They're being replaced with upgraded windows. The weight of each sash, and there's 2 sashes per window, is 300 pounds, so there's 600 pounds worth of glass and wood in there. But when it's done, aesthetically, it'll look exactly the same, but it'll offer a protection that was deemed necessary 35 some years ago. So we will continue to work on that, and if everything goes as planned, it should be completed by Labor Day. The glass floor restoration. Well, the glass floor restoration is slowly progressing, even though we are. Our vendor had a key piece of equipment go down, which is a water laser jet that cuts the glass pieces. So we've had a delay in some of the pieces arriving, although the pieces that we have gotten are precision, they're being put in, and we're like 10 pieces away from moving the partition to the next phase or the second quadrant. So I would imagine by the end of September, you'll see the Swift walls move, or the construction walls, and moving on to our next quadrant. I know they have a new piece of equipment, which is the laser cut that's back. So they have promised to start speeding up their process as well. The west side rain leaders. Now, the west side rain leaders, also known as the roof drains, we're in the middle of the repair as we speak. As previously discussed, we discovered that the rain leaders on the west side have been broken or not fully functional. I remember starting 35 years ago, there was always rumor that there was a pool or a pond underneath the building because there's always standing water on the west side. Well, after we put in Heritage Hall and uncovered a lot of that ground, it was dry sand, so we knew there was something else. It wasn't until we worked a couple years ago having ponding on the east side, on the north, that we realized one of the roof drains were clogged. Matter of fact, the clay tile was crushed and broken. So when the rain goes into those drains, it just starts backing up. It's a 4-inch drain tile, and it just starts holding up 2 or 3 floors until it permeates into the ground, and it starts to create these real swampy areas or sinkholes. After we finished the east, I said, let's stick cameras down all the roof drains on the west. Lo and behold, there were 4 drains over there that were in the same condition. We believe that they were in that condition since the restoration back in the day, but it was just something that wasn't looked at, and they never had enough water bubble up or over to seem like a big problem. But it is a problem. The great thing about it, we've worked with our engineers, our architects, and Chrisman Construction, and we have now cleared those drains out. We're working in the sub-basement as we speak, pulled brick back to expose the piping, and are running new piping to a manhole on the southwest side, which is connected to a catch basin. So all the rainwater and snowmelt that's on the roof will go into the drain pipes, now will flow away from the building into that catch basin, run to Allegan Street, and then back into the storm drain. So this will be a condition that we've really improved. We're pulling water away from the building, the historic structure, and any potential damming that could harm Heritage Hall. So this was a great find, a great success. It is messy. If you look out on the west side, we had to dig a hole. Concrete is put back. We're going to have sod come in the next couple weeks. And then we'll start putting back some of the areas on the ground floor west wing that we had to expose and clean that up and start repainting it. But again, those are one of those loud, noisy projects that's very obnoxious, and thank everyone for their patience as we work through those. But it's a very important find. It's a behind the scene, out of sight, out of mind problem, but it's a problem that could really render great harm if we didn't find it. The next topic I'll talk about is the House and Senate Chamber Ceiling Survey. In the coming months, our architects and consultants will begin a thorough investigation of the House and Senate chamber ceilings. As you're aware, the ceiling in the chambers are very ornate, with many different colors and coats of paint, gold leaf, and glass panels. These areas are in need of a deep cleaning, and the paint restorations, since they have not been touched since the early 1990s, which was the end of the Capitol Restoration Project. This is a very difficult task to obtain, so we're going to do a lot of investigation, develop a scope of work, a strategic plan of even how we're going to put scaffold up there and not shut down session, and prepare a project schedule for this endeavor. I forecast this taking place the summer of 2027, but I will have plenty of conversations with the commission, Clerk Starr and Secretary of Senate Oberlin. We're going to have a lot of conversations because it's really going to affect those spaces greatly. But it's something that's in very big need. But again, in the next year and a half, we'll have lots of conversations as how we tackle that project. But I wanted to mention it now so you're aware of it, and it's something coming up down the road. The next topic I'll talk about is historic door hardware. As we walk through this building, open, close, and secure the doors, we are using historic door hardware. The doorknobs, the hinges, the decorative plates are mostly updated in the restoration project, as we mentioned, in the 80s and 90s. A company called Searcast out of Northern California was our door hardware vendor for years, but they went out of business about 10 years ago. The first year I was back, which was 10 years ago, I had them make a small amount of attic stock, but we are now running out of attic stock. So we're now in the position to try to find a vendor to help us repair this. And again, it's one of those issues that we ran before, kind of like the glass floor. There are not a lot of people out there who work on ornate historical objects. Fortunately, we found a company called P.E. Guerin. They're out of New York City, and they're actually preparing a set of hardware for us as a mock-up to inspect. We sent them a door handle with the ADA lever, an escutcheon plate on the back, a set of hinges, and we are working with them as they prepare a mock-up for us. This company has been in business since 1857, and they still have a foundry that's used in Greenwich Village, and they are providing hardware for clients all over the world. When we started looking at this vendor, we solicited feedback from our design build partners, which is Chrisman Construction and Quinn Evans, and it was great. It didn't take long to receive positive feedback, both from our design build partners. Chrisman uses P.E. Guerin on many historical preservation projects on the East Coast, and Quinn Evans also had an experience using this vendor for their projects as well. They've even lately worked on Versailles in France, so we know they work on historic ornate buildings, which is really good. Once we receive the mock-ups, I will actually bring them to a future meeting, sit them next to some old existing hardware for your review, and kind of show their wear and how we're going to move forward in creating attic stock as we replace the hardware that we use in the future. Landscape master plan. As we talked about for the last few meetings, and we actually voted on it, we're continuing to work with our landscape architect, Mr. Brian Barrick of Beckett and Rader, on our landscape project on the east lawn. As you're aware, hopefully this fall, we're going to remove, I think it's 5 or 6 trees and plant additional, and then the same thing for 2026. There's another clump of trees we'll remove and then replace. So we're evaluating the bids. They did come in, and once we develop a schedule, I'll have more specific dates of when the action will start taking place. A side note here I left for myself, as someone asked the question last time, is what are we going to do if the catalpa tree goes away? Well, I took that note and we started making calls to Michigan State, and we have a meeting set up in the near future with the horticulture department and they've decided to help us, and they're going to plant 5 to 6 catalpa trees, which is a sister, brother, father, a sibling from the same family as this tree, grow those, and hopefully the existing catalpa stays with us a lot longer, but when it goes, we'll be able to raise the tree and plant 2 of the tree from the same family on either side of the sidewalk when that comes. So there's a lot more information to come. I know I butchered that last piece up, please excuse me, but the gist of it all is we're working on that. We're coming to create a solution of replacing that if and when the giant catalpa disappears. As I stay out on the east exterior stairs, in 2014, the lower section of the east steps were replaced and a snow melt system was installed underneath them. At the same time, the upper steps were replaced, but they were replaced with a different type. They were just put up there with planks, so the profile is different. And if you walk out and look at the lower section of these stairs versus the upper, you can tell an immediate difference that the upper is really in need of repair and replacement. Working with our design build partners again, Ben and Chad have helped us put through and developed a budget. We are going to replace those steps that will match the existing profile of all the other steps on the north, south, east, and west. Due to trying to get that material in, we could probably do it in November, December, but it is very unfavorable conditions to put mortar and waterproofing down. So we are targeting for this project to start in June or July of 2026. So the flat portion of these steps where the rallies and events take place is still be available, but everything above it will be shut down as we replace these steps. And when there's not a rally and event, we'll probably shut down the other portions of the steps so we can work on those in a safe condition. Again, more information to come on that. The next piece is going to take a little long, but I think it's really worth talking about our 4th floor here at the Capitol. The 4th floor, we've created a few projects. We're actually starting to call it our revitalization project of the 4th floor. As you know now, there's a couple committee rooms, but basically the space is pretty utilitarian. A lot of the decorative paint was tested up there, so it's really inconsistent. So we're working on really recreating that space for more use in the future and actually put things up that are more welcoming. But I'm going to call up a couple folks here. I want to first call up Barb Thamudo, and she's going to talk about, as you see on the screen, a 100-year plan for the Michigan State Portrait Collection that we've talked about in the past. And then after she is complete, I'm going to have Brian Page come up, because Brian's going to show you a history of what that 4th floor has gone through from the 1870s to today. And then a small proposal of what we want to do on the North Grand Stair as a modification for a future project that I want you all to look at before we move forward. So Barb, without further ado, I'll have you come up and present, and I'll sit here next to you.
Before I get into the 4th floor project, I just wanted to show you our sample piece for this year's Christmas ornament. Pretty pleased with it. Early on when we took on the glass floor project, I knew that when we found out Lucid was going to be our company, they were in Rhode Island. They're literally 20 minutes from our longstanding ornament company. So I thought, how could we pair these two companies together to create an ornament that has a historic piece of our glass floor in it? And so that is the result. And I think we'll have some for sale maybe next month. So they're pretty far along in production. So that's exciting. But I'm up here to talk mainly about the fourth floor. I've been here 20 years, and the fourth floor always was a source for me of frustration. I felt like it was underutilized, and I had a bigger vision for it. We have a very concrete plan as far as our portrait collection, to an extent as far as the rotunda goes. So when a new portrait arrives, it comes out of the oldest portrait on the second floor goes up to the third floor. The oldest portrait on the third floor goes elsewhere in the building. We wanted to create a plan that would incorporate some more space for eventual larger collection, and make that plan as concrete as the rotunda plan is as we use it today. Knowing that we're going to have a new portrait in the next couple years, that kind of got the wheels turning. And then with the decorative paint project, I spent a lot of time up there thinking about the space, how to make it more cohesive. And so I'm just going to show you a few images. It'll be brief, but I just wanted to share some of the things that have come out of the last 6 months or so. So this is the east wing of the fourth floor, and you can see that it's a bit bland. We have one portrait there that you can see, and we have one most recently that was moved out of the rotunda that is hanging on the north staircase over the stairs, not the most ideal location over the staircase. I did some time surveying the space on 4, and we feel we have about 18 locations for permanent places for our larger, what we call monumental size portraits. And so I just started thinking about it more of as a gallery space that's more welcoming. And that'll include furniture that's more comfortable for seating, to invite people up, to have conversations, to look at things. And it also is going to give just a more cohesive decorative scheme across all of the public spaces on the fourth floor. So this next image is showing you some of the work that's going on. On the east, we actually had to take out a large part of the cornice. That's what you see on that picture on the first side. That was water damage, and that involved not just the cornice, but we had to pull back into the ceiling just to get the somewhat severe dip that had been created in the plaster. So that has all been replaced. The center image is the current decorative scheme, and the last picture is our mock-up, and it's actually what's being put in place right now on the east side, which will be all of what all of the ceilings will look like when we're complete. It's a little more elaborate. Whenever we do design work, we always are looking to the building for inspiration, so the elements in those stencil patterns are borrowed or modified from other parts that we already have here at the Capitol. I think it's just going to give it more of a formal feel, a little more of a decorative, aesthetic appeal. So that brings me to this staircase. On the north staircase, as I was spending time up on the fourth floor, I was having a conversation actually with Ben and Chad. They're partly to blame for this. So I just was standing on that landing between 3 and 4 on the north stair, looking at that boxed-in space, and it really bothered me that I felt like we could do much better than just the drywalled staircase backs that you see. We always knew that that was an overfloor area that was left in place because of ADA issues for accessing the fourth floor. But I was thinking about how we could make that look better. And so the next day, I dragged Lucas upstairs, and I said, we're going to cut a hole into the wall, and we're going to stick our phone through it and see, because my hunch was that part of the staircase was still there. And sure enough, that's just from our phone. You can see that about a third of the staircase was actually enclosed in that box that you're seeing on the left. So that was exciting. And then we just put an outlet cover over it so nobody knows that we messed with it. But as I was standing there, and we were excited about just finding this portion of the main staircase, of the grand staircase, I was thinking about Elijah Myers and knowing his love for symmetry and thinking, okay, well, if we have a narrow staircase on the south side, there has to be a narrow staircase, or was a narrow staircase, on the north side. And I had not looked at drawings or anything in a long time, so even if we knew that it was there, I think most people had assumed it had been removed. So what I did is I started looking at the wall, and there's a distinct crack running where the two walls meet, which is a good indication that one of those walls was an original. And then you might be familiar that we have access panels in our wainscot. So that wood portion is actually a door that flips up. We'd never accessed that before, and I think we have senior staff that have been here for 30 years, and as we talked, none of us had any knowledge that anybody had ever opened that. We had no key to it, so Lucas actually cut the lock, and when we opened it, we found an intact narrow staircase. So in fact, they never pulled it out, they just buried it. And Brian did a lot of amazing research after the discovery, and he's going to come up and he's going to present more on that. Back to the portrait plan, there is a packet in your folder that's very detailed. I didn't want to take the time to go through that point by point, but if you do have questions about that, please reach out to me and we can talk about it further. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions before we continue on? I just want to comment. I had been wondering what in the world you could come up with for the ornament, because you always come up with incredible, I mean, I keep thinking, what will, and of course, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I can hardly wait to get mine.
Great.
Brian?
Does it just continue on, or do I need to bring up a new?
Probably just gotta go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had it. This is gonna be a second.
While we're waiting for Brian, I'll have a couple other things I can mention while I have you here. We've had a lot of success recently with our weekend tour guides that we put together, and it's been about 6 to 8 months. And we've had, again, the numbers are increasing, which is very great. We still like to move forward once a month. We don't think going every weekend is fruitful yet. We don't have the deployment from MSP, and our staff is still very prepared to work once a month. And I think we continue down this path for a while. In addition, the tour guide stats for the last 3 months. In May, we had a total of almost 12,000 visitors on 319 tours. In June, we had 677 visitors, and of course, schools have been let out. And in July, we had 866 tours. So all 3 months were slightly down a little bit than they were in 2024, but we actually had more tours in June, July this year than we did last year. So that was kind of great news to talk about. Additionally, if you look out front on the east today, you'll see a crane out there, and the crane is actually working on that east pediment light. Now, we've had problems with all the pediment lights, actually, let me take that back. All the pediment lights have worked very, very well, except the east, which is the most prominent. And if you watch the morning news, CBS, of course, they always show the Capitol view. So it's usually my first view in the morning. I'm not a big news watcher, but I get to see what lights are working, what aren't. Well, when you see the pediment light off, it starts driving me a little bit crazy. So we took the time to actually replace the entire light, the entire wiring set, and then by tomorrow evening, that should be lit back up and variable and ready for display for everyone to see. So I just wanted to make sure you understood what was going on out there with the, in addition to everything else. So I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Still working on it. Almost there.
It'll be worth the wait.
Yep.
When Brian first showed me this presentation, and I've touched this building since October of 1990, I went home that night and I was amazed of the history of the fourth floor west, and what it had evolved to. So it's going to be a treat to share with everyone this piece of knowledge.
Here we are. Okay. So, I'd like to start. Thank you very much for having me today. I'm very excited to tell this story. So Barb just gave you a brief overview of our technically two hidden stairways. I want to focus on the one stairway that leads up to the west wing from the 3.5 floor landing. And I call this an ingeniously constructed bridge. You'll see why in a little bit. This is in reference to an article of when this space was first altered in the year 1900. Looking at the space to start off, this is of course a little difficult with the current scaffolding project going on for the ceiling up there. But what you see is a photo of the South Grand Stairway and a photo of the North Grand Stairway. Not exactly a photo, this is a sneak peek at our HBIM, put a plug in for that we're developing with Quinn Evans. But you'll see the two spaces look vastly different. One of course, a big grand open stairway. The other is about a fourth of the stairway you can see today. But it wasn't always this way. As Barb mentioned, Elijah Myers was prone to symmetry. So what you see here, South Grand Stairway on the left-hand side, North Stairway on the right-hand side from the original 1870s plans. You'll note that each stairs have major stairways leading up to the fourth floor, south and north wings, but they also have a branching staircase up to that west wing, and you'll see it marked as branching staircase. I'm going to show you a lot of floor plans today. They're all oriented in this way, so west will always be at the top with north on the right. This is a look at the west wing. I'm going to focus a little bit on the west wing because it plays a really important part in the story of the north stairwell. The fourth floor west wing for the first 20 years or so belonged to the state library. The state library had the largest singular room in the Capitol. It stretched from the second floor of the west wing all the way up to the fourth floor. And so visitors on the main floor on floor 2 could actually look straight up through the open ceilings and see the ceiling of the fourth floor. And so the fourth floor west wing originally was the top mezzanine of the library. Looking here, you can see a cross-section of the library, the space, and so you had mezzanines at each half-floor level with large, beautiful walnut bookcases like we constructed down on the ground floor of the exhibit room today. But the fourth floor was a little bit different. The fourth floor being back in the early days of the Capitol when we worked on a very crude ventilation system of let's let the hot air rise through. This gigantic space then was left to be very humid, very, very stuffy. There was nothing they could really do about it. So we think the fourth floor of the West Wing was mainly used maybe for reference space for working lawyers up there. It was part of the law library. Maybe it was used for temporary book storage, maybe some book packing for the traveling library program, but nothing too permanent up there, which meant that in the 1890s, when space started to get a little bit tight in the lower levels of the building, the space was up for grabs. And so in 1898, the Board of State Auditors, let me go back to that, the Board of State Auditors, who's the overseeing body of the Capitol early on, ends up giving half of this fourth floor mezzanine, as well as those 2 reading rooms, to the Supreme Court. and they are converted into 4 offices for 4 of our justices back then. What this meant, though, was that you're now going to have 4 Supreme Court justices, along with all their furniture and records and books and their visitors, moving into this space up on the 4th floor west wing. Looking back at the north stairway then, one of Elijah Meyer's few flaws for the building is that he had created a west wing on the 4th floor that was only accessible by stairs. And so now you're going to have justices going from their chamber on floor 3, having to climb that long flight of stairs up to their offices. You have construction crews who are trying to make their offices without a working elevator, so they're having to bring all their stuff up the elevators. You also had still had aged Civil War veterans who were working in the building at this time, having to climb those flights of stairs as well. So in September of 1900, the Board of State Auditors contracts with famous Lansing architect Edwin Bowd to construct a bridge that will connect the elevator, which was back then a steam-powered elevator. It's in the same shaft where our North Rotunda elevator is today, to the west wing. And so what's going to happen then is that they're going to build a bridge over that north grand stairway. And so you can see the article from December 15th, 1900, an ingeniously constructed bridge has been erected on the 4th floor of the Capitol, starting from the elevator landing and reaching, by a right angle, the rear corridor leading to the law library, where those justices are. It clings to the wall for its entire length and is protected by a railing along its outer edge, which overhangs the stairway. And here you can see a plan of it. Unfortunately, plans for the Capitol are rather sparse. From the early days up until about the 1940s, 1950s is when we have our next set of plans from the original plans from the 1870s. But looking at a plan from 1941 that you can see there, you can see the bridge has been constructed. And this is another look at it. So you have the connection over the stairs, over that 3.5 stair landing, over to that west wing. Now, what this means then is that because a bridge is built over that staircase to the west wing, it's deemed a little bit useless. So looking at it then, when you open up that wainscot, you do get a good look inside at that hidden stairway. There's a couple things I want to look at here as you crawl into the stairway, investigate a little bit. First off, you note that the beams up top, so below the bridge, below the walkway on the 4th floor, they're actually marked with their makers. The 3 beams on the left-hand side are marked as Carnegie steel. Carnegie steel was in existence from 1892 to 1901, which puts it right in line with that 1900 construction date we saw from the article. The beams on the right, though, the beam down the center and beam along the right wall, are marked as Bethlehem steel, which really saw its heyday in the 1920s. Another curious feature of this hidden staircase is the artwork on the walls. You notice it's a rather crude paint job. There's a really good chance that behind this artwork is the original artwork that we all know and love from every other corridor in the Capitol. But maybe, I theorize that at some point they were painting over these walls with a new paint scheme, and they put on their first layer, and then they got word halfway through that they were going to hide the staircase, and so it was kind of for naught to finish it. Another curious feature in the hidden staircase are these really beautiful decorative scroll supports. These scroll supports, you'll see, are only holding up the left half of the walkway above. So this makes you think about a couple things here. First off, if the staircase was truly meant to be hidden originally, these decorative scroll supports are kind of useless. Also, since they're only holding up those Carnegie beams, the 1900 beams on the left, and not the Bethlehem steel beams from the 1920s on the right. And then also, those beams are a little useless if those perpendicular beams going across for the cross load, those are Laughlin steel from a little bit later on. You don't need those decorative scroll supports if those perpendicular beams are in place from the get-go. So putting this all together, it's my own working theory that when the bridge was first installed in 1900, it only covered up half of the branching stairway up to the west wing. And so this was an exposed stairway, so folks could either walk up to the west wing through the stairway, as they had been doing for 20 years up to this point, or if there was a load of furniture or books, they could take it up to the 4th floor elevator and then take it over to the west wing on the bridge. But what this meant then, as you're walking up that branching staircase to the west wing, you would see the artwork on the walls, you would see those decorative scroll supports, You just have to be careful not to bonk your head on the bottom of the bridge as you walked on up. Now, those Bethlehem beams, the beams from the 1920s, lines up perfectly with a major remodel that happens in the West Wing in 1921. In 1921, the State Library moves out of the Capitol, and thus the West Wing that we're currently in right now is remodeled. That's when those open ceilings from the second floor to the fourth floor are filled in, and so the floor below us currently, the floor above us currently, are installed in 1921, 1922. And so with this major remodel, then the fourth floor above us is turned over to the massive Department of State. And back in the 1920s, as automobiles are booming, the Department of State has the massive job of storing and handling every single vehicle title in the state in large bookcases, all paper back then. And so what we had then was 160 to 170 Department of State employees whose main job every day was to climb up ladders and store and retrieve all these vehicle titles. And so with the installation of all these large bookcases and 170 feet stomping up there every single day, I think that in 1921, as this is being built or converted over, that's when the bridge over that hidden staircase is actually expanded to the walkway that we have presently, going from the north wing to the west wing. It stays that way up until 1970, as we can see in a couple more floor plans, 1941, 1957, you can see that bridge is still present. In 1970, though, in the midst of major overflooring and remodeling throughout the entire Capitol by the House and Senate, that's when the bridge over the north stair is actually extended to the point where it is now. And so when you think of the fourth floor north and we have that staircase with the iron rail, that entire corridor is modeled like that in 1970. Except it was just a little bit different because they had installed 2 offices up over that staircase. And so the photo down to the right is actually a photo inside of office number 1, and that's the one over the first of the 2 hidden stairs that Barb showed you where she stuck her phone in the wall. So it sounds a little strange, a little frightening to me, but it's actually not the first office we've ever had built over a stairway. In fact, over on the south side of the fourth floor, with that big grand open stair we have today, back in the 1970s, they constructed an office that went over the stairway, fittingly called the L-shaped office. We have a look inside of the L-shaped office here. And we also have some looks from the restoration when they demolished the overfloor. You'll note they have a gray patch in the wall. That's where they had punched a door to get into the current fire escape. They had also bricked in that archway, so there was no longer an archway there. And you can see the dark brown strip. That's where the floor of the overfloor was. And so looking at the modern photo today, it would have been right underneath those windows going across that entire stairway. It's also not the only hidden stairway we've ever had, too. Going back to the north stairs, except down on the second floor level, back in the 1970s, we had a corridor constructed from the second floor west wing over to the House document room. So this went over the stair landing at the 1.5 level on the north stairs. If that sounds confusing, I'm right there with you. It's really hard to imagine. You can see a portrait of Governor Mason that was hung there in the late 70s, right on that right on that elevated walkway. And here's photos of the demolition, but you'll note the photo to the right where they're actually uncovering the branching stairway from 1.5 north up to 2nd west. And I'd like to finish with Quinn Evans back in January put together some proposed layouts of what this space looked like with that 1900 bridge installed. So this is just a look at, this is how it looked in 1900. And to me, this is really important. This opens up a lot of various interpretation opportunities for us in that, thinking back to ADA, it was important that we fixed one of Elijah Meyer's flaws in that he had made a west wing that was inaccessible besides for stairs. So it's important to have that bridge to the elevator. It also tells us, too, that this was one of our first overfloors. In a Capitol that had 80 years of overfloor installations in it, this was one of the first. And so it tells a big story of modifications and alterations to our Capitol. but I'm going to give you one more peek here. This is at the 3.5 landing on the stairs, and the hidden walkway, or the hidden stairway with the wainscot that opens up there over to the right. So you see it's just a much more pleasant, more harmonious with the south stair we have up on the 4th floor too. So I'll finish there. Open to questions if there are any.
Thank you so much, Brian. Any questions?
So the only ask I have of the commission, there's no vote for this today, but as we move forward, we would like the opportunity to open this back up and bring that view back, we think is well-deserved to this Capitol building. I already have the numbers and I already have the plan that we could do this or start this project in the summer of 2026. It shouldn't really interfere with many of the activities in the building, but since we are manipulating architecture and not just doing repair, I would like the commission to vote on this at our next meeting. So I'll bring this up again. I'll give you guys an opportunity to review, discuss. Chair Bill Candler is already aware of this project. Him and I have had a discussion. So I'll leave it at that, but I am open for questions right now.
Commissioner Hodge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not a question, but more of a comment, maybe a recommendation. You know, I'm a history minor, so like this stuff I can kind of nerd out on all day. Like this is really exciting. I'm excited for you guys to have this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing what you bring back. My only recommendation is that next time we kind of go through this, like let's take a tour.
Yeah.
Like let's walk around and actually see it. Like, you know, the first grade teacher in me kind of kicks in. Like I want to go and touch and feel and see this. Like this is some exciting work. I mean, I could tell, you know, when you were presenting, like you were excited about it. I mean, you were in those stairwells. Like I want to be there too. I want to be right with you on that. So that's just my one recommendation that I have.
I appreciate that, and why don't we plan on the end of next meeting in October to do that walk? We can incorporate a walk looking at the north stairs. We can also walk and have Barb show us some of the areas that they want to remove some of the portraits for the future. So you actually have a physical look of where these will hang in the future. Because that is something else, as we talked in the past, having a 100-year portrait plan is a great idea because it preserves or helps makes the decision for the future, where if we leave the decision open, those portraits could end up anywhere. Unfortunately, they end up in back rooms where the public can't see them, or they get put in a closet, and then you find them 20 years later damaged. So if we memorialize that plan, I think it really, as the stewards of the building right now, really shows that we are thinking about this building from all perspectives. So I will plan on next meeting, and we'll make sure we put that in the minutes. Bring your soft shoes or whatever you want to walk around and crawl around.
And I'm almost wondering if we should do it before the meeting, just so we have a sense then when we're,
Oh, yeah.
because we'll be voting on it, but I absolutely
I'm at your
support
pleasure. You
that.
tell me when you would like to do it, we'll do it.
Okay, yeah.
I will accept that friendly amendment from Madam Chair.
Any other questions from commissioners at this point? Okay, thank you so much, Rob and staff, and as always, wonderful job. You make us all very proud to be part of this commission. Is there any other business that needs to come before the commission? Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? Moved and seconded that we adjourn, so we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming, and enjoy the rest of this fleeting summer.